And we're back for our UFC Winnipeg predictions with Gilbert Burns and Mike Malott in the main event again at the home of the Winnipeg Jets over in Manitoba, Canada. It's a welterweight main event, and yes, it is a Gilbert Burns main event in the year of our Lord 2026. That's okay though, because we are coming off a crazy pay-per-view last week in Miami, Florida. Hey, what I say about Josh Hokett, man? I mean, come on, Josh Hokett's got me so excited. I'm doing the dance now. I'm doing the Josh Hokett dance. Am I right, Miami? Come on. What did I say? And I was told I was crazy for being that high on Josh Hokett. Come on now. A superstar has been born, and I can't wait till we beat Derek Lewis at the White House. I can't wait for us to get a championship fight. It's great. I'm so excited. Josh Hokett, superstar in this sport. Yuri Prochazka might be the dumbest fighter of all time. I say that with the utmost respect. Love watching Yuri fight. Oh my goodness. Anyways, folks, before we get in the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC content here on the channel. Thursday is going to be our best bets for this card. And tomorrow, we're going to have our PFL Belfast predictions. Dara Kelly taking on JJ Wilson in the main event, so make sure to join us for that tomorrow. Main channel Greedo plays daily MLB and daily NBA best bets. Okay, let's go. First of our 13 fights this week from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Our first fight is the debuting fighter in Jamie Siraj taking on Yannis. Or at least I will try to remember the record of the Canadian fighters that I have on this card. See, Canadian MMA, and I say this with the utmost respect, I have nothing against the country Canada. I've never been to Canada. Canadian regional MMA isn't that good. Okay, I'm old enough to remember when KB Buller was a really big prospect from Canada, and he was awful. Obviously, Canada has the greatest fighter of all time in Georges St. Pierre, or one or two, John Jones, depending on where you put them. Don't care. They're both great. But regional Canadian MMA talent, not very great. Obviously, the UFC's really tried with Mike Malott. That's why he's in the headliner here, even though it kind of feels like an undeserved headline spot, but it's okay. Against Gilbert Burns, whatever. We'll get to it later in the video. Canadian regional MMA, I'm not a big fan of. And we see a lot of Canadian prospects just get beat up once they come into the UFC. There's exceptions, obviously. Malott, Jasudavicius, Charles Jourdain. But there's not, you would think Canadian MMA would be a little bit bigger than where it's at right now, especially after Georges St. Pierre's run, obviously. That concluded 10 years ago now, 8 years ago now. Anyways, Jamie Siraj is our first fight of the night. He's taking on the American and John Yannis. Siraj from Vancouver, British Columbia. Yannis training out of Texas, obviously down south in the United States. I'm going Jamie Siraj to win the fight. Jamie Siraj is 14-3, and I will say there are a couple, again, UFC debuting fighters on this card from Canada. They bring back Tanner Boser for this card, okay? Jamie Siraj got starched by Diego Brandao wearing the Powhatan shorts and Tough Enough in Las Vegas. I'm not joking, that's a real clip. It's a real fight, it happened. Siraj was the Tough Enough champion, and then he fought Diego Brandao, again, Brandao wearing the Powhatan trunks. Obviously, Diego Brandao, who's 38 years old, lost to Conor McGregor back in the day, who actually just beat Kai Kamaka as well, so maybe Siraj just be in the UFC because Kamaka just won again in the promotion, who cares? Siraj gets spinning wheel kicked in the first round by Brandao and put out cold. It's 3 fights ago. That was a year ago. Diego Brandao is putting him out cold. He's won 2 fights since. He goes to Battlefield Fight League, which I believe is the promotion that KB Buller was champion, so not a big fan. Nothing against KB Buller, just wasn't very good in the UFC. But anyways, Jeremy Kennedy's a champion in BFL now. Great. Siraj wins the championship in his first fight in BFL. I believe defends it in his second fight. Actually, no, fights in a catchweight fight in his second fight. Sure, okay. Wait, he's the catchweight champion? This is real? What? BFL Catchweight Championship? How does that make sense? They have multiple catchweight belts? What goes on up there? I don't know. Still, Siraj has won back-to-back bouts by submission. Now, he's taken on John Yannis here. It's Yannis' second UFC fight. He's 9-4 as a pro. A little bit of a questionable signing. He beat Nick Aguirre on the, not on the Contender Series, in Fury FC to win the Fury FC Championship, and they needed a short-notice replacement fighter to go fight Austin Bashi last year in the Apex, and expectedly Bashi beat Yannis. Yannis was a plus 650 dog. First round submission win, rear naked choke. Yannis has now been booked, obviously, for this fight. Siraj, his entire game, for the most part, is grappling. 7 career submission victories. Obviously got beat on the feet and knocked out in the feet by Diego Brandao. Yannis, I would say that's his advantage. He's gonna have to make this a dirty fight on the feet. But I don't think he's going to beat Jamie Siraj at all. I think Siraj will have this one in the bag. And I'm going to be going here with his nickname is the Gremlin. I'm going to go with the Gremlin and Jamie Siraj to win this fight by submission. He's not a good striker from what I've seen, but his grappling does look somewhat decent. So I'm going to go Siraj to win the bout. I'm going to go second round submission over John Yannis making his UFC debut and picking up a win for the Canadians. Real quickly, guys, before we get into our second prediction of the night, make sure to go check out our Josh Hokett content. I think this is the last time I'm going to bring up Josh Hokett. I've dropped multiple videos over the past week about Josh Hokett, so if you want to hear me hype up my guy a little bit more, those are also on Greedo Plays MMA, so go make sure to check this out. We've got two Josh Hokett victories, or two Josh Hokett videos. One of them is just my reaction right after the fight where he beat Curtis Blades. I was on cloud 9. Okay, on to our second fight of the night in the bantamweight division. We go to a matchup between John Sexy Mexi Castaneda and the Russian Mark Vologdin. I don't think there's any tie to Canada in this fight, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think Mark trains in Canada. No, he trains in Sweden. Regardless, it's a random fight between an American and a Russian over in Canada, but it is what it is. John Castaneda coming off back-to-back losses. The guy's not won a fight since 2023 where he beat Kyung has lost back-to-back fights to both Daniel Marcos and Chris Gutierrez. The Gutierrez fight competitive, but the rightful winner in that fight, in my opinion, is Gutierrez. He drops Castaneda and does win it 29-28 in the scorecards. Speaking of scorecards, how awful was that decision for Chris Padilla and Markel Medeiros? How do you overturn that Padilla's not the winner anymore an hour later and all of a sudden it's a draw? What are we doing? Anyways, John Castaneda does lose to Gutierrez. Before that, loses to Marcos. Actually gets dropped in both of those fights and had an oddly competitive fight against Kyung at Madison Square Garden. Don't get me wrong, he wins every single round, but Kyung's low-key competing on the feet, and maybe that was just, a look into the direction of where the John Castaneda career was going to go after that. And now he gets the UFC debuting fighter here in Mark Vologdin. Vologdin coming off a loss in the Contender Series to Adrian Luna Martinelli. I thought he was going to win that fight, obviously. When the Contender Series comes back in August, we're going to do the same thing we did last year. That's predict every single Contender Series fight. Hell, I kind of called that Josh Hokett was going to be a big name back then as well. Oh, I mentioned his name again. Regardless, we did Contender Series last year. It was a bunch of fun. We'll be doing it again this year as well. And we picked Vologdin to win his fight, Vologdin, in his fight against Martinelli. Ultimately does lose by decision, but it's competitive. It's a high volume fight. Again, it's just a really good fight. He loses 2-1, but it is a razor thin fight because it really comes down to how you score the first and the third rounds. The second round, it's a Martinelli win, but 1 and 3 are razor thin rounds. Vologdin does lose a close unanimous decision 2-1. So now he gets John Castaneda. Is Castaneda ready for the volume on the feet? Because Vologdin's boxing looked really good in that fight. Again, he just fought a guy who put pedal to the metal the entire fight, brought the fight to him, and Luna Martinelli is fighting Luna Marnetti, excuse me, I called him Martinelli. Luna Marnetti is fighting Davey Grant coming up, so obviously I think fairly highly of the guy. Vologdin fights a good fight, fought a guy who, again, high volume, difficult bout. Vologdin prior to that was the AFN champion in the regional scene over in Sweden, excuse me. If that means much. It's just, I don't love Castaneda coming off back-to-back L's, and did struggle back in Louisville, Kentucky in June of 2024 with the volume of Daniel Marcos. I would have to imagine he's going to struggle with the volume of Vologdin. Again, I don't know how much volume we're going to see in a Mark again because, the first fight's in the Contender Series. Guys fight a little bit different when they're on the Contender. They're trying to desperately get their 12-12 contract. Obviously, they want to break into the UFC, so guys will fight differently again on the Contender than they do in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, I understand. But it is your UFC debut. You're looking to, make a statement, and the power is there. Again, Marnetti just eats a lot of damage, and Luna Marnetti's good. I think, he's going to be a solid fighter. We'll see if he beats Davey Grant in a couple weeks, but Vologdin, the power is there. If he sits back on his shots, he's going to land. And another thing, he is only 25 currently. He's 25, and I believe actually, yes, Saturday will be his birthday. He's fighting on his 26th birthday on Saturday night. He's still young. He's still getting into his prime. And that's the thing. Again, we're going to see a fighter later on the card. And I like Mandel Nallo. But Mandel Nallo is, 36, making his UFC debut. And Mark Vologdin is making his UFC debut, 11 years younger than him. So it's just, you get guys on the Contender Series and some signings. I think Chanel Dyer was the same exact way. Chanel Dyer, who obviously won her UFC debut over Ravena Oliveira. The UFC and Dana White will see fighters who are just young and they'll take them as prospects and they'll build them up, over time. That's what Mark was. Mark had a good fight. He didn't win, but obviously the potential is there with the high striking volume and with the power that he has if he sits back on his punches. For Castaneda, again, has not won a fight in 3 years. Last victory came at UFC 295. That was the first Prochazka Pereira fight. Fought once in 2024, fought once in 2025, and lost in both of those fights. I do think he's going to struggle with the volume at a mark here. Vologdin's defensive wrestling, pretty good from what I have seen. That's if Castaneda does decide to wrestle himself, which we have seen in the Gutierrez fight and the Kyung fight. I think everything points to me for a victory for the UFC debuting fighter, Mark Vologdin. Does he get the knockout finish over Castaneda? I'm going to go no. I'm going to say it's a decision. I don't think Castaneda's chin's honestly that bad. I know he got KO'd by Daniel Santos, but yeah, I think this one does go the distance, and I do think it is a victory here for the Russian, now trading out of Sweden, in Mark Vologdin, picking up his UFC debut win again against John Castaneda. He is currently priced at -135 again to win his UFC debut. Okay, on to our third best bet of the night, or best bet, my goodness, I'm already thinking ahead towards Thursday. Our third fight of the night, we go to the flyweight division. It is New England Cartel's own Mitch Raposo fighting Alan Nascimento. Now, I don't know if Raposo's still 100% with New England Cartel right now. Again, I don't know if he's cross-training currently. At least he used to be a Cartel guy. I don't know if he's still at New England Cartel. But you know the rule. If they fight or train out at New England Cartel, they're probably not that good. Again, I hate to shit on the camp guys. And, like, all these guys would beat me in a fight. I'm not going to deny that. But Chris Moutinho, Nick Fiore. Again, Raposo's been better than these guys, but Brandon Marat, Angel Pacheco, Connor Matthews, all these guys who don't win a single fight in the UFC. And yes, where Raposo is different than all these guys is that he's actually won a fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, okay? He is different because he's actually gone out and won. I understand. I don't know if Raposo's still 100% with Cartel or not. I don't know. Again, why do I always kind of crap on Cartel beyond just their losses? It's the fact that they fight in Cage Titans and CES up in the Northeast, and I believe it's Cage Titans, right, that is owned and promoted by Calvin Kattar. So Calvin Kattar is able to get his guys favorable matchups in the regional scene. They're able to beat up on cans to the point where they get on the Contender Series and all they have to do is win one fight, and now they're in the UFC. So again, I don't hate these guys. I'm just saying we've seen a pattern where New England Cartel guys continue to lose fights over and over and over again. So Mitch Raposo is from the New England Cartel. I don't know if he's specifically just training there anymore, but again, he's got it in his blood. He's a New England Cartel fighter, but he is coming off his first UFC victory where he did win at UFC 321 back in Abu Dhabi. He beat Azat Moskam. It was a huge win for him, winning the fight by unanimous decision. He was a huge underdog in that fight at +400, and I will give credit to where credit is due. Again, Raposo pulls off the victory. Huge win, deals with the wrestling out of Moskam, but Moskam not able to do any damage with those wrestling positions, and again, that's the way fights should be scored, damage-based scoring. Mitch Raposo gets the win. He had a tough start to his UFC career as he did lose his first two fights. This is a fighter who was on the Ultimate Fighter, was on the Contender Series, had a shot on the Ultimate Fighter, lost to Ludwig Shailan in his first Ultimate Fighter fight in season 29, then got a shot in the Contender Series against Jake Hadley, lost both of those bouts, came back, won fights in Combat Zone, CES, and Cage Titans, the Northeastern promotions, wins the championship in Cage Titans, gets his way back in the UFC, fights a competitive fight against Andre Lima, which some people will say that Raposo won. Not against that, whatever. Raposo then gets beat by Stu Madarji. Madarji's doing damage. Raposo's wrestling. That's just the name of the game there. And then beats Azat Moskam because, again, Moskam's the one just scramble wrestling the entire fight. And Raposo, I'll give him credit, he's actually doing damage in the bout. The problem for Raposo in this fight, my goodness, this is a step up. Alan Nascimento. And again, another fight with no Canadian ties, right? Raposo trains in the Northeast, no Canadian in him at all. Nascimento is straight from Brazil. I don't think he's like Caio Machado, a Brazilian who's now in Canada. No, Nascimento's straight Brazilian, and they're fighting in Canada. Brazil versus the U.S. up in the north. Sure, why not? Nascimento's won 4 fights in a row, lost his UFC debut to a very tough Tagir Ulanbekov, and then from there, my goodness, he's won 4 straight fights. Beat Jake Hadley, who did beat Raposo in the Contender Series. That was right after Hadley beat Raposo in the Contender Series. Beats Carlos Hernandez by submission, beat Jafel Filo by decision, and is coming off an Anaconda choke finish in November of last year in Brazil against Cody Durden. I'm pretty sure that was in Brazil. Nope, that was in the Apex. I apologize. Still, Nascimento's won 4 fights in a row. Why is Raposo getting this fight? And that's reflected in the odds. Well, I mean, yeah, Nascimento's a -305 favorite. It makes sense. I don't get the matchmaking. Good for Raposo for finally winning a fight. Get him an easier bout than this. Get him an easier fight than Nascimento, who, I'm not saying Nascimento should be fighting into the top 15 right now, but at least, again, like, that's the next step for him. He should be fighting a Madarji's getting Alex Perez. He should be fighting a Joseph Morales, I think would be a really great fight. I wouldn't mind that. Morales obviously won the Ultimate Fighter and then just beat Matt Schnell. That's a fight that you should be having. 2 guys who are trying to crack into the top 15. Raposo's nowhere near the top 15 right now. It does not make sense to me. Nascimento's only lost to Takeru Lembekov, and he's ran through his next couple opponents. He's looked good. Again, good grappler. I know struggled a little bit with Jafel Filo. That was not a entertaining fight, I can say. But the Jourdain fight, not bad. Finds a submission in the second round. Hernandez fight takes the back, submits him in the first round. Raposo, this is where Raposo will be competitive. Raposo doesn't have bad wrestling. Again, like, he's able to stay out of danger against Moskam, and you saw a wrestle-heavy approach against Sumidarji and whatnot. This is a shorter wrestler who throws very hard. Obviously, it's just like, how can I describe Mitch Raposo? He's like a very watered-down Michael Chandler, like in terms of build, in terms of how he fights. But his jiu-jitsu is not the greatest. I've seen this guy submitted before by Jake Hadley. I do think Nascimento is able to get a takedown. I think the toughest thing Nascimento is going to have to do this entire fight is actually finding the takedown itself. But once he gets him down, or once he takes the back of Raposo, then it should be a victory for Alan Nascimento. I'm going with the Brazilian here. I think eventually he will submit Mitch Raposo. Like our first fight, I'm going to go second round submission for Alan Nascimento picking up the win. I think eventually he will find that sub, and I think he gets Raposo out of there. Actually, no, check. First round submission for the Brazilian and Alan Nascimento. On to our fourth fight of the night, first of back-to-back women's fights as we go to a matchup here between J.J. Aldrich and Jamie Lynn Horth. Aldrich coming off a victory against Andrea Lee over a year ago versus Jamie Lynn Horth, who's now won back-to-back over Teresa Bleda and Vanessa Demopoulos. And yet Horth finds herself as a pretty big favorite in this fight. Kind of surprisingly, like I don't disagree with the fact that Horth should be a favorite. This big of a favorite, I don't know. Aldrich has a lot of experience in the UFC, obviously. J.J. Aldrich has had a million UFC fights. This will be walk number 17 into the octagon for her, and she's got some big wins in the past. Obviously, the biggest one being Jillian Robertson. That was such a big win over Jillian Robertson back in, when was that? March of 22. I remember that fight, man. We had J.J. Aldrich in that fight. I believe she was a dog, right? I believe she was. I just remember that being a big hit for us at the time. Yeah, she was like a plus 150 dog, and she beat Jillian Robertson. It was like plus 150 at open, and we got Aldrich on that one. Since then, though, Aldrich has not been great. They gave her an Erin Blanchfield fight after, lost, fought Ariane De Silva, or Ariane Lipsky, who obviously is now fighting in the PFL, beat Liang Na, beat Montana De La Rosa, lost to Veronica Hardy, beat Andrea Lee, and now here we are. I mean, yeah, you're supposed to beat Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee, I don't know if she fights anymore. Does she fight? I don't think so. Because, yeah, she's lost 6 fights in a row. So that was a weird thing, too, right? They gave J.J. Aldrich Lee, who had lost so many fights in a row, and then she's booked to fight Karini Silva last year. A fight never happened, and now here we are with the J.J. Aldrich versus Jamie Lynn Horth fight. Horth isn't bad, I will say. That win over Teresa Bleda is big time. I mean, it is rare you see actual knockout finishes in the women's weight classes, and I will say we've seen a lot more recently. Obviously, Alexa Grasso, Casey O'Neill, Viscazi, Casey O'Neill. We're seeing more finishes in the women's weight divisions, which is great. It's the best thing that can happen for the sport. And Jamie Lynn Horth knocks out Teresa Bleda last year in December. That is that's the Apex fight. Yeah, the last UFC on ESPN card, Manel Kape versus Brandon Royval. Jamie Lynn Horth puts out Teresa Bleda in the first round. It's a 2-minute knockout. It's great. That was coming off of a fight where she beats up quite easily, obviously, on Vanessa Demopoulos, who was never a high-level UFC fighter. And Horth's only losses in the UFC are Veronica Hardy and Miranda Maverick. Now, both Horth and Aldrich do share a common opponent and a common loss to both Veronica Hardy. Hardy beat Horth back in 2023. She beat Aldrich as well the year after in 2024. I believe it was back-to-back fights for Veronica Hardy. I will say, and again, this does not tell the entire story, does not tell the entire tale, but Hardy looked better against J.J. Aldrich than she did against Jamie Lynn Horth. The Jamie Lynn Horth fight, and I'm not just saying this just because it was a split decision, I thought the Jamie Lynn Horth fight was a lot more competitive. I thought so. I thought, the J.J. Aldrich-Veronica Hardy fight was pretty clear 2-1 for Veronica Hardy. She wins the first 2 rounds. Aldrich is doing a lot of scramble wrestling and can't really do any damage with that. The Veronica Hardy fight against Jamie Lynn Horth, somewhat competitive. I don't really know. I mean, again, that one can go either way. That's legitimately, all right, you probably go third round Horth, you go second round Hardy. You watch the first round, it's razor thin. And is it razor thin because of the lack of activity and the lack of volume? Sure, but again, compare a common opponent, and they fought in back-to-back fights in terms of that was Hardy's back-to-back fights. I don't mind that for Jamie Lynn Horth at all. But in terms of how we look at this fight specifically, I think Horth wins. I think Horth is going to be able to outstrike J.J. Aldrich. J.J. Aldrich is just good everywhere, but we do see fights where she just can't get going and she gets beat to the punch, right? We saw the Ariane Lipsky fight, De Silva fight, right? Veronica Hardy, it's not a great volume fight, but Hardy is landing first, and Hardy is landing compared to Aldrich. I think if Horth goes first in this fight, she will win. And yeah, J.J. Aldrich is coming off a big victory over Andrea Lee, but Andrea Lee in the big 2024 or 2025 when that fight happened, I can't put any hype on that, obviously. It's Andrea Lee, who had lost 5 fights in a row going into the bout. I think Jamie Lynn Horth does pick up a massive victory here against JJ Aldrich. I expect Aldrich to eventually wrestle, but I do think Jamie Lynn Horth, I think she has a strength advantage in this one, oddly enough. I just think she does. She is the taller fighter by 3 inches. She is older. She's 36, but I do think Horth wins the bout. I do think Horth, again, wins in those clinch scenarios, and I think she does win on the feet, too. Again, the clinch scenarios, obviously, are just important in terms of trying to keep the feet standing and trying to keep the fight at the range that she wants it to be at. So I'm going to go with Jamie Lynn Horth to win the fight by unanimous decision, picking up the second win on the card for Canada, and oddly enough, yes, we've got the Canadians starting the card at 2-0, again, with Jamie Siraj early on the card, and now Jamie Lynn Horth picking up another victory. I'm going to go Horth by decision, picking up again Canada's second win of the night. On to our next fight, we move to our 5th fight of the card. Another Canadian, Melissa Croden from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. By the way, I always specify where these Canadian fighters are from. Jamie Lynn Horth is from Squamish, British Columbia. Okay, I know it's by Seattle or by Washington. And anyways, Croden is from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which if I'm not mistaken, guys, I know nothing about Canada, not much. I've never been to Canada. Only thing I know about Canada is the hockey teams. I know the Flames play in Calgary in the Saddle Dome. Anyways, Calgary's or Alberta's like the Midwest of Canada, right? I could be wrong. That's just what I've seen, at least. And the Saddle Dome, I'm getting a little off track here. The Saddle Dome looks cool as hell to me. But I heard it's the worst arena in sports. But just from the outside, does the Saddle Dome not have aura with the Calgary backdrop? It looks fire. Wait, they're getting rid of the Saddle Dome, aren't they though? Anyways, I've always thought the Saddle Dome's really cool. Even when I was younger, watching hockey, I always thought the Saddle Dome was really cool. But apparently it's a mess to actually go to. Anyways, we got on the Saddle Dome because Melissa Croden is obviously from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. She will be taking on one Daria Zheleznyakova here. Canada looks to pick up their 3rd win on the card. And I'll just say it, I think they're going to get it. I think Melissa Croden is levels better than Daria Zheleznyakova. Zheleznyakova, to me, is not that great of a fighter, and I say that with the utmost respect. She's 2-1, and yes, the Melissa Mullins win is great. Zheleznyakova avenges the loss she had in Aries FC, and I guess I'm being a little too harsh. Her only loss is Eileen Perez. So let me clarify here. I don't think Zheleznyakova is that bad. I just think Croden is slightly better. Okay, now I can't put anything on a victory over Monsi Rendon. Monsi Rendon's as low level as it gets, even though she beat Pereira. Croden is slightly better than Zheleznyakova in my opinion. Croden won her first fight by TKO against Tainara Lisboa. She's able to get Lisboa down. She's able to find the TKO. And fights really well against Lisboa. Do not get me wrong. The Luana Santos fight is competitive. Luana Santos wins by decision, which I thought was the right call, even though Luana Santos, is kind of hell-bent on not doing damage in a lot of her fights. But you know what? She'll keep getting decisions because, well, she's marketable, so what can I say? But Croden loses the fight to Santos. It's not a bad fight for her, though. I mean, again, the volume's not great and the action's not great, but in terms of the fight being competitive, not the worst for Melissa Croden. Zheleznyakova, her wins in the UFC again. Melissa Mullins, who I just don't think is that great. 2-2 in the UFC. She'll be fighting Bia Mesquita coming up, and we know Bia Mesquita is going to submit her in the first round because Bia Mesquita is going to be the champion. I legitimately believe Bia Mesquita is going to be the champ next year. If Kayla Harrison retires after she beat Nunes, or Nunes retires after she beats Harrison, what's our title fight? Juliana Pena versus Bia Mesquita? Take Bia Mesquita to beat Juliana Pena for the belt next year, legitimately. Anyways, I don't think that high of Mullins, man. Her UFC run has not been great. And yeah, she's going to get Mesquita next. She'll get subbed in the first round, and then she'll be out of the promotion. Zheleznyakova, that's one of her wins. The other one's Monsi Rendon. It's Montserrat Rendon. I will say, I don't mind Zheleznyakova volume on the feet. She does go, and she does throw a lot. So again, I will give credit to where credit is due. She does look to win fights in the feet, and she is an aggressive striker. But that's where I think Croden might be able to get her. Because I do think, Croden honestly doesn't have the worst power for 135. Legitimately. I'm breaking down a women's fight like this. Zheleznyakova is going to look to pursue volume, while I think Croden's just going to do a lot more damage, okay? And the reason I say I'm talking about a women's fight like this is because usually, again, I'll just say, the skill level in women's fights never is the highest. And I say that with the utmost respect, it's just the truth, okay? But Croden, I do believe, has a lot of power. And I say that because, again, not just the skill level, it's just 135, and Juliana Pena said this too. I keep bringing up Juliana Pena. But 135 is like heavyweight for women. Not because these women are fat, unathletic athletes. No, that's not the case at all. It's just because it's the highest weight class, and you don't have to be as skilled at 135 as you do at 125, where you have to be incredibly skilled, in 115 the same exact thing. And I know Mackenzie Dern's the champion at 15 right now, but still, she's become a really good fighter. So you don't have to be the best fighters. What I'm trying to get at women's 135. Again, that's just why I say I'm breaking down a women's fight like this. I need to specify a women's 135-pound fight like this. But Croden's power is actually really good in terms of, relative to the rest of the weight class. I do think if, Zheleznyakova is crashing forward and she is trying to blitz, Croden is going to hit her. I think Croden is going to affect that striking game out of Zheleznyakova, which is, again, very volume-based. I think Croden will win. She was able to knock down Lisboa. Again, how high level is Tainara Lisboa? Whatever. Beat Ravena Oliveira and Jessica Rose Clark. I think Croden wins here. I think Melissa Croden's going to win in Canada. Canadian judges have never been too screwy, but you have to think too. Close decision probably goes to the Canadian. I'm going to go Melissa Croden to pick up the win over the Russian, now training out of Paris, France, in Daria Zheleznyakova. Croden wins the bout by decision, sending the Canadians to 3-0, but can they stay undefeated with a heavyweight fight between Tanner Boser and Gokhan Saricam? Tanner Boser's back in the UFC. What? I mean, really? Tanner Boser has reappeared in the UFC octagon after, I'm pretty sure this happened. I don't think this is a figment of my imagination. Tanner Boser openly went at the UFC and attacked the UFC after he got cut, and said a bunch of things that were wrong with the promotion. I could be imagining things here, but I'm pretty sure I watched an interview where he said that. Regardless, Boser's back in the UFC, and you may be thinking, oh, well, he went on a massive run up in Canada, he maybe beat KB Buller, I don't know. No, the guy wanted a massive run in Canada. He won a belt over there, and now he's, a red-hot fighter coming back into the UFC, taking on, obviously, a former Bellator name in Saricam. No, Tanner Boser won one fight against Vinicius Moreira. Vinicius Moreira? Yeah. Maybe the worst UFC fighter of all time. I put that tag on a lot of fighters. Moreira might be that tag, though. He was awful. I'll never forget Vinicius Moreira versus Ike Villanueva on a Wednesday in the middle of the pandemic. I had Zoom class. True story, guys. I was on Zoom class on my computer, but for every fight, I would leave my computer and go to my couch to watch every single fight. And I just, listen to the speaker volume, obviously, because we did not use Zoom. Yeah, regardless, I sat on my couch and listened to, knock off whatever the hell was happening in English class, okay? I just didn't care. For reference, I was a pretty good student. I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but regardless. So I'm sitting on my couch again. I've got class and all on the table, or on my dining room table. But I'm sitting on the couch and I'm sitting there watching Vinicius Moreira versus Ike Villanueva on a main card of a fight night on a Wednesday in January. It was was it the co-main or was it the feature fight? It might have been the co-main. It was the feature fight. Warley Alves fraud checked Munir Laziz on that card too, and Michael Chiesa won in the main event. But that was the worst fight I've just in terms of the two fighters going into it. Ike Villanueva was 0-3 in the UFC. Moreira was 0-3, and Moreira got chinned. He was awful. Ike Villanueva did his big celebration after the fact. It was hilarious, and they gave Ike Villanueva $50K for the bonus after that fight. But long story short, Moreira got knocked down every single fight he had in the UFC, or got finished in the first round every single fight in his UFC, except for the last fight where he went to a second round and got finished in 30 seconds in the second round against Villanueva. I know the guy's won some fights in Jungle Fight and whatnot since, but I do not care that you're beating Vinicius Moreira in the big 2025. And oh, by the way, that fight happened over a year ago, or about a year ago to this point. That was in UAE Warriors, where Boser broke him and beat him in the third round by TKO. It was, Moreira said, I quit. Okay. Why is Boser back in the UFC? I know. I'm not going to ask the question. The fight's in Canada. Gokhan Saricam's good. I don't know how good he is. I've watched Saricam through Bellator. He's got power. He's had a lot of quick finishes against fat, unathletic heavyweights. As soon as he fought, somewhat decent guys, Steve Mowry, Oleg Popov, they were able to take him down. They were able to control him. Tanner Boser, I don't think, is going to be able to just wrestle pressure Gokhan Saricam because, again, that's not what he does. Saricam has got good wrestling in his own right, do not get me wrong. He's got heavy power on the feet. Saricam is not great as the fight wears on from what we've seen. He had a big decision victory over Daniel James in Bellator in 2023, but is a fighter for the most part that wants to get you out there early in fights. Boser's chin is kind of held up in the UFC, I can't lie. Ion Cutelaba put him down and put him out at 205. And who else knocked him out? I don't think has he been knocked out? No, that's his only knockout loss in the UFC. So I do think Saricam might have a little bit of trouble getting Boser out of there early. Boser's defensive wrestling, not the worst. Not an offensive wrestler at all. He just doesn't shoot takedowns because he's a pure boxer. Who's like, he's a volume heavy boxer. I guess that's what he became at the end of his UFC run. Like, yeah, I guess he knocked out Felipe Lins and he beat Daniel Spitz to a decision. He knocked out Rafael Pessoa. OSP did beat OSP. I do think you're going to see probably, though, Boser look to go volume heavy, volume pressure in this fight, where Saricam, I do believe, is going to look for those big power shots. Can he put away Boser? I just don't know. It's a very short notice fight. This fight got put together last weekend. Short camp. I'm going to go Gokhan to win. I'll go Gokhan's first round knockout, because again, if Gokhan wins, it's likely how he does it. If he doesn't get the first round finish, I'm thinking, okay, well, he probably puts a lot into that first round, tries to win it, and I think then he'll go into wrestle heavy mode in the second. I think he'll get that round, but I don't love the fight if it goes past the first. But again, if anyone's able to put down Boser, it is Gokhan. Like, again, as a 15-minute fighter, is he great? I don't know if I can say that. But as a 5-round fighter and a first-round fighter, yes, that's where you're going to get by far the best Gokhan. Saricam, he's a heavyweight, obviously. That's what most of them do. They're not all Josh Hokett. Sorry, I keep bringing up Hokett. I'm going to go Gokhan Saricam by first-round knockout victory over Tanner Boser. Don't love the fight, though, honestly, and I would not bet it at all. On to our next fight. We go to a matchup, and sorry, that takes now the Canadians to 3-1. Our next fight, we go to a matchup between Robert Valentin, the Swiss fighter, against the debuting Canadian out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. For reference, Tanner Boser is from Bonnyville, Alberta. That sounds like a Tulsa, Oklahoma, if I've ever heard one. Nope, this is way smaller than Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is like Brookings, South Dakota. Anyways, it's the UFC debut of Julien Leblanc. He's from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He's taking on Robert Valentin. Robert Valentin's been one of the worst UFC fighters since he's debuted with the promotion, which is a damn shame because the guy was really great on the regional scene and was signed to fight on the Ultimate Fighter, ended up going to the finals of the Ultimate Fighter, and he lost to Ryan Loder. Since then, he's lost back-to-back fights to Torres Finney and then got knocked out, obviously, by Atiba Gutierrez, who the UFC will continue to give the easiest matchups imaginable. They thought, you thought maybe after his last fight they'd try to give him a tougher opponent because he struggled so much. Nope! Fight Ozzy Diaz. You know what? I see it. That's fine. Atiba Gutierrez can be a star. He's Ngannou at 185. He'll have to fight 205 eventually. Do not get me wrong, but sure, why not? Anyways, Robert Valentin is coming off the loss to Gutierrez. Gutierrez expectedly knocked him out in 70 seconds. It's the fourth and likely final chance for Valentin. If he can't win, obviously, he's going to be cut. Julien Leblanc's a favorite. Really? On Tapology, 77% of voters are taking Julien Leblanc. The question I have for you, have you watched this guy fight? He spams body kicks. He's a southpaw, if I'm not mistaken, yes. He's going to spam that left body kick all fight long. His striking, I've watched LeBlanc fight. I watched his entire last fight against Ryan Rahovich in Samurai MMA, a Ryan Rahovich fighter who was 6-9 going into the fight off of 4 consecutive L's and losses in 7 out of his last 8. He was booked against Jamie Siraj, oddly enough, a couple times. Fight never happened. But anyways, I watched Ryan Rahovich versus Julien Leblanc. Julien Leblanc wins, but oh my goodness, it's not as one-sided as you think it is. Leblanc striking, I'm telling you, his hands are here the entire fight. His hands are here, and he's throwing like this. I'm not joking. This is how he throws punches. Now, don't get me wrong. Would Julien Leblanc beat me in a fight? Obviously. So again, I'm just critiquing mixed martial arts, obviously. But he's throwing like this the entire fight. And his body kick's not bad. It's so telegraphed, though. You can tell when LeBlanc's going to throw it. When he wants to throw the body kick, I don't know, it's weird. He, looks down, and it's very telegraphed. I can't describe it myself, but watch LeBlanc versus Ryan Rahovich. You can tell every time LeBlanc's going to throw that left body kick, that back leg body kick, and he spams it. He spams it all the time. And when he throws his body kick, hands drop. Valentin's going to chin this guy. I feel so confident that Robert Valentin's going to chin this guy. This is a case of a bad Canadian prospect and just Canadian regional mixed martial arts not being the best. Nothing wrong with that, okay? It's just the truth. Regional MMA in Canada just is not the best, and this is supposed to be a high-level prospect. Is he? He's 34, so how high level of a prospect is he really? You're 34, now you're making your UFC debut. Valentin is 3 years younger at 31 years of age. I don't understand why 77% of people are taking LeBlanc to win. It's probably because, we watched Robert Valentin, he's not very good, and he hasn't won a fight yet in the UFC. I get it. The Ryan Loder fight was awful. He didn't do anything, right? Ryan Loder beats him to a pulp. Torres Finney fight, Valentin arguably should have won because Finney doesn't throw a strike, but it is what it is. Yeah, you got put on his back for 13 minutes. Sure, whatever. Valentin versus Gauthier. Yeah, again, Gauthier struggled some in his last fight, but if I can say anything about Atiba Gauthier, the guy hits very hard. He's difficult to deal with. Robert Valentin still did win 2 fights in the Ultimate Fighter, both by first-round finish against both Yannis Bachar, who has made some appearances in the PFL, and Paddy McCrory, who, again, is the Cage Warriors champion, just won the championship in February. That's a really great victory. McCrory's a good fighter who won in the Contender Series last year. He'll be back in the Contender Series this year, and Paddy McCrory is going to be in the UFC in September. I feel pretty confident in that, as long as they don't give him some other really great prospect to fight on the Contender. Valentin, again, he's been bad in the UFC, but guys, Leblanc drops his hands every single time he throws a hook. He drops his hand every single time he throws a body kick, and he's so telegraphed in there. His grappling is where he's best, 100%, but I don't think he's going to be able just to take down Valentin at will in this fight because, again, he's so telegraphed when he shoots. It's a very slow shot. He tries to bring you up into a clinch. He kind of wraps you around and tries to throw you. No. Robert Valentin is winning this fight. Watch Julian LeBlanc fight. You will not be impressed. He's a can crusher. He fought once in LFA. He lost to Joel Bauman back in 2021. Joel Bauman, who is known for his interesting post-fight speeches. He wears a dog collar in some of his whatever. I'm not going to talk about him. He's an interesting guy. But yeah, Robert Valentin will win this bout. Trust me. Go watch LeBlanc and see who he's beaten. Hasn't beaten anybody good. He's a can crusher. Valentin wins the bout by first round knockout. He will catch this guy. LeBlanc is not a good prospect at 34. On to our next fight, we go to a matchup opening up the main card. Denis Buzukja takes on Mauricio Barbosa. Again, no Canada ties to this fight, I don't think. It's just like, why is this opening up the main card with no Canada? Whatever, fine. Buzukja, obviously from Long Island, New York, Staten Island, New York, trains though up over on Long Island, if I'm not mistaken, or is he in Miami now? He might be in Miami now. I apologize. Again, former Long Island guy. Denis Buzukja, currently in the UFC, 1-3, taking on Mauricio Barbosa, who is 17-2 as a pro, but is making his UFC debut on this card. Was booked back in March to make his debut. It's been pushed back because his opponent withdrew from his fight. He's now taking on Buzukja. Got his contract in the Contender Series in August. Got a first-round knockout victory over Damon Wilson. And now Barbosa, of course, is making his UFC debut. And let's just say a favorable spot. By the way, the Canadians are now 3-2 on the card. Obviously, no Canada ties in this one. Yeah, okay, Barbosa is not a Kyle Machado. He does train and live in Brazil. Buzukja, again, is a full American, so no Canada at all to this one. I think Barbosa is going to easily win. Again, we talk about this being a good entry-level spot for him in the UFC. It just is. Again, Buzukja, his only win in the UFC is Conor Matthews. And again, like we talked about earlier with the Mitch Raposo fight, New England cartel fighters don't win in the UFC. Conor Matthews is a New England cartel fighter who won a fight in the Contender Series and then didn't do anything in the UFC after. Buzukja so far has made a career of losing in the UFC. I say that with the utmost respect. Came into the UFC, lost to Sean Woodson. Actually fought once in the Contender Series, got 2 shots in the Contender, lost the first one to Melsik Bagdasaryan, won his second attempt, but got in the UFC, lost to Sean Woodson, knocked out by Jamal Emmers, beats Conor Matthews, and loses a decision to Francis Marshall. Marshall knocks down Buzukja in the fight, and again, Marshall wins based off of damage. Buzukja takes a lot of damage. His chin, I don't know if his chin's that bad, but guys are just able to find the range against Buzukja. Mauricio Barbosa is good. From what I have seen out this guy, he is very solid. He has 2 pro losses. One is to Gabriel Santos back in 2022 in LFA. Santos at the time was still undefeated, and the other is to Luis Felipe back in 2021. Felipe, I don't know if he's the most highly touted guy, but that's neither here or there. Barbosa's put together a pretty good resume so far, and you can see it on the screen, obviously, right? The spray chart, I guess, of his wins. Yeah, 14 of those are by knockout. The guy's a finisher. And against Buzukja, who does throw a lot on the feet, is somewhat high volume, but gets hit quite a bit, I don't love it at all for Denis Buzukja. Because how does he hypothetically win this bout? He just outstrikes Mauricio Barbosa? I mean, that has to be the game plan. He has to just go out here and out-volume him, touch him up, and make him crumble. I just can't see that happening, guys. I can't see Denis Buzukja outstriking this guy who's got dynamite in his hands. He's a active finisher. Barbosa, everyone in his career's in the first round except for one. Yeah, this is absurd. 16 out of his 17 wins are in the first round. Now, I will say that will give you something on Buzukja. 2 out of the 3 times Barbosa has left the first round, he has lost, right? Got head kick knocked out 9 seconds into the second round against Gabriel Santos. Got finished in the second round back in December of 2021 against Luis Felipe. The other fight was a decision victory back in July of 2021. But yes, he is a finisher. His fights don't go long. I don't think Buzukja gets him out of a first round because Barbosa, from what I've seen, again, cuts off the cage very well, forces you to fight his fight. He's going to get into his range, and I just don't honestly think Buzukja is that high level. He's been put in this spot, Buzukja, to lose. And it's another fighter, too, I think kind of just got into the UFC a little bit too early. Got into the UFC at about 25, and now you're 28, and you're 1-4 in the promotion, and it's going to be hard to get your way back. And by the time you're back, you're going to be like 32-ish, and I don't know, just not a great map for Buzukja on his road back to the UFC, which will likely be the case after this bout after he gets knocked out. And I'm going to go with Mauricio Barbosa to win the fight. He is a short fighter for the weight class. Do not get me wrong. He's short for featherweight. He's 5'6". Like a fighter, when you look at him and you think, maybe can you cut to 35? But then you look at him and say, okay, how much, how much fat are you really holding right now? There's not much more weight to cut. So he's just a shorter 145 pounder, but this is just how this works in the lower weight classes. If you're short, you have to hit really hard, and that's what Barbosa does. So he's going to knock out Denis Buzukja. I'm going to go Barbosa picking up his win in his debut. First round knockout victory over New York's own Denis Buzukja. We go on now to our next fight in the main card, another USA versus Brazil fight. Again, no Canadian ties here at all. Thiago Moises is a ATT fighter, and Gage Young's training out of I believe Missouri. Yeah. Regardless, again, I guess they just don't have enough Canadian fighters, but we'll get on to them for our final 4 fights. Anyways, Thiago Moises takes on Gage Young. Moises is an underdog in this fight, which surprises me a little bit. Yeah, he's coming off loss to Jared Gordon, who is fighting Jim Miller next month in Newark, New Jersey on the pay-per-view card, on the undercard, obviously. But it's a little surprising he is an underdog against G-Money Gage Young, who's coming off a win in his last fight in August of 2025 over Mahashet. Gage Young, a former FAC fighter, the James Krause ran promotion. Now, Gage Young is not, he was not a James Krause fighter. Like, he didn't train in his gym, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he did at all. Actually, wait, did he? No, he didn't. Zach Cummings is not the same camp as Krause, I'm pretty sure. Zach Cummings, obviously, right, former UFC fighter, now one of the main coaches at Ignite Jiu-Jitsu over in Missouri. That's not Krause's gym at all, I don't think. Anyways, I'm pretty sure it's not. Hold on. I'm like 95% sure it's not. Regardless, Gage Young's coming off of a big win over Mahashet. Beat Mahashet by decision. That was Gage Young's first UFC victory, as in his debut, he lost to Evan Elder. I'm a little concerned this is too much for him, and Gage Young's been fun so far in the UFC. Don't get me wrong. It is heavy volume, it's heavy pressure, and he's going out there. I mean, it is a war when you watch Gage Young fight. The volume is through the roof. The Mahashet fight throws 200 significant strikes, lands 100 of them against Evan Elder. The final significant strike tally in that fight, 115 for Evan Elder, 81 for Gage Young. It is an all-action fight. Again, that Elder does win in Young's UFC debut. So now Young's third fight, he gets a crafty veteran in Thiago Moises, and that's the name of the game here, right? Can Thiago Moises crafty veteran his way to a victory? And that sounds, kind of as a joke, but like it kind of real. Can Moises, again, who has got all this experience in the UFC, can he find a way to beat a younger fighter in his third fight in the UFC? Moises, this is walk number 16 in the UFC octagon for him. And yes, Jared Gordon did just chin him and knock him out. And I hated that fight from Moises. We had Moises. I had money on Moises. It sucked ass, okay? I'm not going to deny that. But the trend we've seen out of Thiago Moises' career since 2021, it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. He beat Melt Costa, and Ezequiel Costa obviously just beat Dan Ige, knocked out Dan Ige. That guy keeps on climbing the ranks. Moises loses to Benoit Saint-Denis, beats Mitch Ramirez, loses to Ludovic Klein, beats Trey Ogden, and then proceeds obviously to lose to Jared Gordon back in May. But again, it's just a trade-off. You win one, you lose one, you win one, you lose one. We'll see if he can beat Gage Young here. If I'm Moises, I believe we got to go in here, and I think, obviously, we got to try to slow the fight down a little bit, and I think he needs to test the grappling game out of Gage Young. It's just the truth. Gage Young is very, I don't want to say he's not inexperienced, but he hasn't been tested yet. Yeah, Mahashet tries to take Gage Young down. Mahashet can't take Gage Young down. Mahashet actually goes, I think it's 0 for 7 in that fight on takedown attempts. Gage Young's actually the aggressor. He's getting takedown in his own right. That's Mahashet. Here's Thiago Moises. Again, the thing I posed to you, is it too much right now for Gage Young? Because I know he's going to come out firing early in this fight. This is the biggest opportunity he's been given. He's on a main card of a, fight night in Winnipeg in front of a sold out crowd, obviously a arena with 16,000 people in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. You're taking on a guy who's been here. Moises has fought Islam Makhachev. He's fought Benoit Saint-Denis. He's beaten Milk Costa. He's fought Bobby Green, right? He's fought Michael Johnson. He's fought big name guys on big stages before. I just think it's too much for Young because, again, the way that he fights and the way that he throws so much volume, it's just, to me, I think he's going to, I'm not going to say the moment's too big, but I do think he's going to press a little bit too much in this fight. And when you're pressing too much, I think Moises is going to catch you. And to me, again, I joke about it, it's a crafty veteran, but that's kind of the truth. Moises is a crafty veteran. He knows how to win. He's won 8 fights so far in the UFC, and I think he's going to make it a 9th here. I think, again, the veteran presence and the fact that he's fought so many fights in the UFC, he's got all this experience, is going to pay off massively in this bout. I do think he's going to take down Gage Young because, again, yeah, you're able to stuff takedowns from Mahashet. Here comes Moises, who I understand is not the greatest pure wrestler, but his jiu-jitsu is obviously really good. And Moises, I know, got chin against Jared Gordon. We have to watch that in the striking game in this fight. But I think we're really underrating what Moises can do, and especially I believe the books are underrating what Moises can do as well. I think he'll be really competitive on the feet. I think Moises will likely be able to get takedowns in this fight, and I think Thiago Moises likely wins a 29-28 decision. I'm going to go with the Brazilian here in a second straight fight to beat the American fighter. Moises gets it done. I just believe the experience is going to play too much of a factor in this fight. Thiago Moises gets the win by decision and continues his trend that he's had for the last 3 years, and that's win a fight, lose a fight, win a fight, lose a fight, and now win a fight for the Brazilian out of ATT, Thiago Moises. On to our next fight. It is a matchup between another Canadian. We're back with the Canadians. Jasudavicius gets to fight in front of her hometown crowd. Not hometown, she's from Ontario, but home country crowd against Curitiba, Brazil's own, and Karine Silva. Jasudavicius, one of the biggest favorites on this card. Obviously, the main event has the biggest favorite on this card. We'll get to him later in the night. But Jasudavicius, a pretty sizable favorite against Karine Silva, and it makes sense. I know Jasmine is coming off an L, and she is getting up there in age. She's 37 years of age. She had a fight against Manon Fior, a fight where if Jasmine won, you could have made the case she could have got a title fight. I remember that was a little bit of a conversation at the time. It was like, all right, well, if Jasmine wins, I know Natalia Silva's around, but does Jasmine jump the line because the UFC wants a Canadian champion because they haven't had a Canadian champion in a very long time? They haven't had one other than George St. Pierre. No, she loses to Manon Fior in the first round. And don't get me started on the current state of 125. Why isn't Natalia Silva fighting Valentina Shevchenko? What are we doing? Can we get that title fight made? I don't understand. Anyways, and where's Fior? She wins in October against Jasmine. She knocks her out, and she hasn't fought since. Where's the activity out of any of these fighters? Valentina never fights. Natalia Silva's got to beat the entire weight class to get a title fight. The best 125er in the world probably fights in the PFL. It's Natalia Silva. Dakota Ditcheva. I don't know. What's going on at women's flyweight? Apparently, according to Dana White yesterday, Zhang Weili's fighting again at 125 in Macau? Did Dana get that right? She's staying at 25. What's she going to fight? Fior? I don't know. Who's Mackenzie Dern going to fight? She's going to fight Jillian Robertson for the title at 15? I don't know what's going on in any of the women's weight classes, at least towards the belts. We have no scheduled fights for any of the 3 divisions in the women's weight classes. We know Harrison Nunez is coming up, but when? I don't know. Probably August. Anyways, Jasudavicius, Karine Silva should be a win for Jasudavicius. She's solid. Do not get me wrong. She's just not elite. And that was clear in the Fior fight. And yeah, the fight only lasts a minute, but there was clear levels in that fight. Fior is just on a different level than Jasmine, and it showed. I was wrong. It was a horrible... In hindsight, it was a horrible pick. I took the dog in Jasudavicius. I thought she was going to be able to wrestle just like how Valentina wrestled Fior. She never got the opportunity because Fior knocked her out before Jasmine was able to change levels and before Jasmine tried to even get the fight on the ground. Again, Jasudavicius is a good grappling game. Submitted Ariane Lipski, submitted Priscilla Cachoeira, and the biggest win of her career, obviously, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, she submitted Jessica Andrade in the first round with her naked choke. She's got good grappling and she's got great jiu-jitsu. Good jiu-jitsu and good wrestling. Karine Silva, on the other hand, is coming off a loss in her own right, lost to Macy Barber by decision, beats Diane Barbosa prior to that, and then prior to that, lost to Viviane Araujo, who just picked up her first win in the PFL yesterday against Shanna Young. Yeah, again, the PFL had a card yesterday. We went 9-1 on that one, but that's neither here or there. Big win for Mitchell McKee, beating Sergio Pettis, by the way. But Karine Silva, can she stuff the takedowns in the wrestling of Jasudavicius in this fight? I don't think so. I've seen Viviane Araujo take down Karine Silva. I saw Diane Barbosa take down Karine Silva in a fight that Barbosa probably won. And I saw Macy Barber get takedowns on Karine Silva. Why wouldn't Jasmine be able to do the same exact thing? And oh, by the way, fights in Canada, hometown crowd, first fighter on the main card to fight from Canada. The card's going to end here. It's the first of 4 consecutive bouts where there is a Canadian fighter. Crowd should be going for this fight. I believe with the hometown advantage, or home country advantage, I believe Jasudavicius wins. How does she win is the question. I think she wins a decision. Creedy Silva, I still believe, is difficult to submit. She has been subbed twice, but those come back in 2017 and 2014 against, oddly enough, somewhat notable names. Marina Moroz, the Ukrainian fighter, submitted her back in 2014, and Marina Mohatina, if you remember her from the PFL, fought Larissa Pacheco and Kayla Harrison in the PFL, actually submitted Creedy Silva back via a knee bar 9 years ago in 2017. Anyways, I do think Silva's, somewhat difficult to submit. Obviously, I mean, she's fought Barbosa twice now and, split the two fights against Barbosa. Barber, Arujau, doesn't really get finished, is yet to be finished in the UFC, and I don't think Jasudavicius is the first. And don't get me wrong, Jasudavicius has picked up some big finish wins so far in her UFC career, obviously the biggest one beating Andrade, but as Andrade's career has gone, she's become extremely easy to finish in there. Now, obviously, coming off 3 straight L's, I don't know what the next chapter is for Andrade in the octagon, whatever. She's on the cusp of 20 wins coming up too. But regardless, I think Jasudavicius wins. I believe her wrestling is going to play a huge factor in this bout. And I think she should be able to ground Creedy Silva in this fight, something that we've seen other opponents do to Silva in the past. So I'm going to go with the Canadian here and Jasudavicius. That sends now the Canadians back to 4-2 on the card. I'm in sweeping the card for the female fighters, the women's fighters from Canada. So give me Jasudavicius like we had with Croden and Lynn Horth earlier on the card. On to our feature bout in the lightweight division. It is the Black Country Banger in Jai Herbert taking on Mandel Nallo. The only fighter in UFC history to ever knock down Ilia Topuria is the Black Country Banger in Jai Herbert. Had Topuria almost out. If you remember, Ilia randomly went up to take a short notice fight at 155, and Jai Herbert cracked him with the head kick. Ilia then put him out cold a round later, but whatever. That was an elite aura moment for Ilia Topuria, though. Fun fight, crazy fight. The most adversity we've seen Ilia deal with in the UFC by far has been Jai Herbert. Anyways, Mandel Nallo versus Jai Herbert, high up on the card in the feature bout. We mentioned Nallo a little bit earlier in the night when I was talking about Mark Vologdin, who was 25 or 26 years of age, making his UFC debut cut from the Contender Series. Mandel Nallo, as well from the Contender Series, making his UFC debut at 36 years of age. He will be 37 in the summer. Very rarely do you see Dana White give these guys contracts. It's just a rare thing. Usually these guys don't even appear on the Contender Series in the first place, and when they do, they're kind of just put on the Contender Series to lose because they want their up-and-coming guy to get a win to get into the UFC. So Mandel Nallo obviously wins in the Contender Series, picks up a victory over Samuel Silva, wins the fight by first-round knockout. He was an underdog going into the bout, and he wins. He wins by first-round knockout. I thought Silva honestly was going to knock him out, but it is what it is. Nallo has now found himself in the UFC, was never the best Bellator fighter. We've watched a lot of Mandel Nallo. His biggest win in Bellator, I remember talking about this at the time of the Contender Series. We were like, I don't know whose best win in Bellator was. It's either Ricardo Sexias or it's Bryce Logan. Neither of which are big names. He fought Nick Brown, got TKO'd, fought Adam Piccolotti, the Italian, got submitted in the 3rd round, got cut from Bellator, lost to Achilles Mota. I was never impressed with the Bellator run out of Mandel Nallo, and he comes and wins fights in XMMA, MMA Mexico, BTC, and Samurai MMA, and all of a sudden he wins a fight in the Contender Series, and now he's in the UFC. Take it on Jai Herbert. If I can guarantee you anything, for the most part, usually out of a Jai Herbert fight is that someone's going to get knocked out. The nickname is the Black Country Banger for a reason. However, recently from Herbert, we haven't seen finishes. His last 5 fights since losing to Ilia have all been decisions. Because Jai Herbert comes into the UFC and takes that beating from Trinaldo, and obviously that's the Dan Hardy infamous stop the fight to Herb Dean in Fight Island, or at Fight Island. Herbert, after that, got subbed by Renato Moicano, beats Kamaworthy, and then obviously fights Ilia and loses. Since then, it's a bunch of decisions, and Herbert gets some, he loses some, beats Kyle Nelson, he has a draw against Ludovic Klein, loses to Fares Ziam, beats Ronaldo Bedoya, and then just recently lost to Chris Padilla by split decision. Now he gets Mandel Nallo in a huge fight on a feature bout of a UFC Fight Night card in front of fans in Winnipeg. I think it's really competitive, guys. Now, Jai Herbert, he hasn't fought, not all of his fights have been the same as his early UFC bouts, and you can tell, I don't know if it's just a mindset thing out of Herbert early in his UFC run, or it's just, maybe nerves or whatnot, but a lot of those early Herbert fights in the UFC are just straight up wars, man. Trinaldo, Worthy, Topuria, these fights are crazy fights, and again, that's why he has the nickname Black Country Banger. His fights are bangers after bangers after bangers. And then he fights Kyle Nelson. It's a little more relaxed approach. Same with the Klein fight, Ziam fight. Bedoya, he goes for it and puts away. Sorry, he doesn't put away Bedoya, but knocks down Bedoya. And the Padilla fight, again, just not the most volume in that one. Padilla wins. Chris is doing a lot more damage than Jai Herbert's doing. Padilla wins the first 2 rounds. Herbert wins the third. It is what it is. Again, Herbert, though, has kind of struggled to pull the trigger in some of these fights recently. If he pulls the trigger against Nallo, I think he can beat him. But I don't know, man. Mando Nallo, he surprised me, I will say this. Because when Mando Nallo left Bellator, I never really thought much of him. And I say that with the utmost respect. Like, after Nallo left Bellator, I was like, all right, didn't think I'd ever see this guy in the UFC. Because I remember watching him against Nick Brown. And Nick Brown was, somewhat of a highly touted guy at the time. Bellator really liked Nick Brown. He had beaten Trey Ogden and LFA before that. He beats Mando Nallo, and then obviously they gave him Islam Mamedov, and he lost. Haven't heard that name in a while, Islam Mamedov, who I guess just doesn't fight anymore. I don't know. Undefeated in PFL, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, Nick Brown was the star of that fight, and Brown finished Mando Nallo in the second round. But I give credit to where credit is due. Nallo's been winning. It's just, who has he beaten? And how good is Jai Herbert at 37 after all of these tough fights he's had? It's 2 older guys, but Nallo's making his UFC debut at 36. Herbert's 37, going to be 38 later in the month. I'm going to go Mando Nallo. I think Nallo's going to catch Jai Herbert. Am I confident? Hell no. Am I confident in it? Mando Nallo wins the fight by second round TKO. I still do not love the chin of Jai Herbert, and we also have to see which version of Jai Herbert we get tonight. I'm going to go Nallo by second round TKO, sending the Canadians to 5-2 on this card. Am I confident? No. Give me Nallo, though, to win by second round TKO. Co-main event, bantamweight division, Charles Air Jourdain takes on Kyler Phillips. Is the Kyler Phillips experiment over in the UFC is the question. And what I mean by that is, how much are we really looking at Kyler Phillips in the UFC? Not in terms of him being cut, but in terms of being like a somewhat high-level product. Because Kyler Phillips has been around the top 10 or top 15 for quite a bit. I don't think he's still ranked, and I don't think he should be ranked after the Vinicius Oliveira loss. He's not currently ranked. But, this is a guy in Kyler Phillips who's been in the rankings for quite a while. I think they put him in the rankings after he... Was it after he beat Barcelos they put him in the rankings? Which, hey, speak of a win that continues to age well. Beating Raoni Barcelos at this point in time is a huge win. Obviously, Barcelos is on a huge winning streak and whatnot. Raoni, man, continues to win fights. He's got Montel Jackson next month. Big-time fight. Do not get me wrong. That's next week in the Apex. Why is that in the Apex? And why is Aljamain Sterling in the Apex? Whatever. But Kyler Phillips, right, beat Raoni Barcelos, beat Pedro Munoz. Again, UFC's always liked Phillips. He's one of O'Malley's guys, obviously, in Arizona, not the guy, because that's Tommy McMillan now. But Kyler Phillips gets the big Rob Font fight, and Rob Font, like he's done in the past, like he did to Adrian Yanez, turns away a prospect, turns away Phillips. The thing is, Phillips has been a prospect his entire career. He's 30 now, and I think they're still going to call him a prospect probably when he fights on Saturday night. But back-to-back L's now for Phillips, and the Vinicius Oliveira fight really is rough for him. First round, Phillips wins, but that second round, my goodness, it's in New Orleans, Louisiana, on the Holloway Poirier BMF, retirement card for Dustin Poirier. That second round, my goodness, the hands just explode for Vinicius Oliveira. Completely unloads on Kyler Phillips, drops him. I don't know how Phillips even survived the second round, but nonetheless, fight continues. Third round, again, Phillips is kind of just on autopilot mode at that point because he's taken so much damage prior to that point in the fight, and Oliveira wins the fight by unanimous decision, easily winning the second and third rounds in the bout. But post that first round, and that first round is really weird because, Oliveira really hesitant to pull the trigger in that first round, oddly enough, and completely lets go of the hands in the second round and just flatlines the guy and just continues to dominate. But again, we have not seen a great Kyler Phillips performance in a while, and it was against Pedro Munoz back in 2024. Pedro Munoz was like 38 in that fight. Rob Font beats him. Phillips turns into a primary wrestler, and we've seen the wrestling out of Phillips, but when Kyler Phillips has to go to his wrestling a lot, it's usually when he's losing. And that's just what we've seen so far. Raulian Paiva, who beat him. Guys, this is a real thing that happened. Kyler Phillips beat Song Yadong in March of 2021, and then 3 months later, he lost to Raulian Paiva. Great fight against Paiva, but he lost. And we really never see a wrestle-heavy approach out of Phillips until he's losing on the feet. Once he loses on the feet, and once he's losing, then he, all of a sudden, classic Nate Diaz line, so you're a wrestler now. But that's legitimately what Kyler Phillips is. Can he win on the feet against Charles Jourdain? And here's my thing. If Phillips scramble wrestles, he's going to get caught in a guillotine choke, and he's going to get choked out. That's my concern for Phillips here. It's right there. The writing's on the wall in this fight. Because, again, it's a constant thing we've seen in the Phillips career. He loses, he shoots for takedowns, and sometimes he gets them, but how does Charles Jourdain defend takedowns? He wraps up a guillotine choke, and he's pretty effective in doing so. There are just guys in the UFC who have mastered the guillotine choke better than others. I will say, Tresean Gore is one of them. Kevin Holland's not a guillotine, it's a Darce choke out of Kevin Holland. Almost got it yesterday against Randy Brown. Again, we were right on Kevin Holland. But Jourdain, again, like Holland with the Darce, and obviously, like Tresean Gore, is nasty with the guillotine choke. So far in the UFC, Charles Jourdain has put together four guillotine choke finishes. Lando Venata back in 2022, Ricardo Ramos back in 2023, Victor Henry in 2024, and Davey Grant in his last fight just last year in 2025. It's how he defends takedowns, and he's pretty effective in doing so with that choke. And that's where I think Jourdain's going to win. Because again, the way I'm envisioning this fight, it's going to be competitive on the feet, right? I mean, Phillips will throw, but I think Jourdain's going to land first. Jourdain, is he a high-level striker? I don't know. He's sloppy on the feet. He doesn't really, he doesn't really defend strikes the best because he kind of just walks through them and he gets into firefights in the feet. I mean, I've known Charles Jourdain's been special for a while. The fight that I really, enjoyed watching, I've talked about this so many times in the channel, when he fought Doo Choi back in Busan, South Korea in December of 2019. I was, the last card of 2019 back when they used to do cards post-Christmas. Those were the days. Weird fighter Frank Yeager stepped in on short notice to fight Chan Sung Jung, but regardless, that was such a great fight against Doo Choi, who's had phenomenal fights. Obviously had a great fight back in the day against Cub Swanson, who's obviously just retired now. That's when I realized how good Jourdain was, and Jourdain's continued that style since he won that fight. He lost Andre Fili in a great fight that I thought he won. The Kalibau fight was a very competitive fight after that. But I mean, every single fight that Jourdain has is a high octane, just high pressure fight. And the only way you can really beat Jourdain is either if you're a high level striker like Jean Silva, or you can just straight up wrestle him like Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood did some striking too, don't get me wrong. Shane Burgos, the fight that happened on Long Island, Burgos' last UFC fight, where Burgos just became a wrestler to try to beat Charles Jourdain, and he did, even though Jourdain beat him on the feet in that fight. But Jourdain now coming off back-to-back submission victories by guillotine over Victor Henry and then Davey Grant in his last bout. I think he's going to be effective on the feet against Kyler Phillips. I think Phillips is going to feel, okay, I'm kind of losing a little bit. Boom, scramble takedown. Charles Jourdain catches him in a guillotine choke, and chokes him out in the second round. That's how I see the fight going. Because Jourdain's going to bring it to him, and Jourdain's going to force him to fight a crazy, high-paced fight. It's just what Jourdain does. You're going to hit Jourdain 100%, but he's going to hit you too. You're going to do damage on him, he's going to be giving it right back to you. It's going to be a back-and-forth war. Phillips is going to bite first to try to get that takedown. Jourdain catches him. Boom, squeezes on the choke. Fight over. Charles Jourdain wins. That's kind of how I see it going down. It's in Canada. Charles Jourdain is a Quebec fighter. Now, obviously, this one's in Manitoba, Canada. But I think this does send the Canadians now to 6-2 on the card. If I'm not mistaken, 6-2. Lost track. I believe it's 6-2 on the card, or is it 6-3? Regardless, the Canadians keep on winning. Let's just say that. It's going to be a good night for the Canadians. I think Jourdain does submit Kyler Phillips in the second round. I'm telling you, second round guillotine choke. He's going to catch Kyler Phillips coming in with a takedown. It's going to be a sloppy shot because it's going to be a really high-paced fight on the feet. Phillips is going to have to scramble takedown. Boom, guillotine, catch him on the way in, subs him in the second round. Jourdain wins. I think it'll be close in the feet, but again, Phillips is going to bite first on a takedown. He's going to stop striking first, and that's where Jourdain's going to make him pay. Okay, our final fight of the night, obviously in the main event in the welterweight division. Gilbert Greedo Burns is in a main event in 2026 as he's fighting Mike Malott. I have seen, but the UFC is really trying with Mike Malott. I was going to say I've never seen the UFC try to promote a fighter and try to push a fighter more than Malott. That's not true. Sean O'Malley, which it worked, do not get me wrong, and Mike Malott is not Sean O'Malley, but they really, how about, oh my goodness, what's his name? Callum Walsh. That's even more than O'Malley. UFC shoves Callum Walsh down your throat. No one talked about this. The April Fool's joke the UFC did on Callum Walsh, to promote Callum Walsh on their page, it had 50 likes on Twitter when they said, Callum Walsh just signed with the UFC. Just, no one, the point of an April Fool's joke is to make it a joke when people bite. No one bid on it. But anyways, to my point, the UFC pushes Callum Walsh, even though he's a boxer, but it's Zuffa boxing, whatever. They pushed Malott a lot. Not as much as, obviously, Callum Walsh. But they're trying. And they're trying enough to the point where they put him in a main event against Gilbert Burns in Malott's home country as a minus 600 favorite. I was shocked when this fight was announced as a main event because I get it. You don't have that many more Canadian fighters to put high on the card. Sure, 100%, I get that. You could have given Malott a way better fighter, right? You look at the rankings at 170. Gilbert Burns is ranked 11th. Danny Rodriguez is still in the rankings, I guess. Colby Covington's down to 15 now? Wow. I mean, I guess Colby just doesn't fight. I mean, it's the truth. He doesn't fight. But for Malott, I mean, you could have given him a better fighter than Gilbert Burns. I guess Malott's not ranked. Malott will crack into the rankings with a victory here. He will replace Colby Covington, actually, in the rankings with a win. But I just feel like there could have been better fights for this. And Joaquin Buckley is what I would have liked to see. And I understand that's not what the UFC wants in this fight. They want Malott to win, so they can't do Buckley. But again, like, that's my point. The fight's been so set up for Malott to win. Look at the other names in the top 15. Okay, I'm not even gonna talk about Colby and D-Rod. D-Rod just got out of prison. Colby doesn't fight. He's a wrestler now. Uros Medic versus Michael Malott. I think you take Uros Medic. Michael Venom Page versus Michael Malott. Might be boring, but I'd take MVP. Gabriel Bonfim versus Malott. Close. And then once you get in the top 9, it's nothing but killers. Buckley, Edwards, Usman, Brady, Prates, Bilal, right? I mean, these guys are obviously credentialed guys, former champions. They've picked their spot so well for Malott, though. You give him Gilbert Burns, who has not won a fight since April of 2023. He has not won a fight since the Biden administration. You can say that about a lot of fighters, I'll be honest with you. But the last one's Jorge Masvidal. Guys, Jorge Masvidal, since losing to Gilbert Burns, has fought Nate Diaz in boxing. He's, said a million times he's coming back to the UFC. He's, attacked and assaulted Colby Covington in Miami. And Gilbert Burns hasn't won a fight since all that happened, right? He beat Masvidal, then he got a fight against Bilal, which is supposed to be a, title eliminator fight, and it kind of was eventually. He lost to Bilal on short notice, in a month's notice, by decision. Fought Jack Della. Oh, the damage he took at the end of that fight. Gilbert honestly did not fight that poorly. It's just the end of that fight. Ooh, the elbows from Jack Della. Yeah, nasty stuff. Then loses to Sean Brady in a 5-round main event in the Apex. And then another Apex main event against Michael Morales. Usually when you get Apex main events, you have to win Apex main events to then crack back into arena main events. No, Burns has lost 2 straight Apex main event fights. He's lost 4 consecutive bouts, and here he is in a main event in front of a crowd in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Okay. His last 3 victories in the UFC are against fighters who are now all 40 years of age. Is Magny 40? He's 38. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Neil Magny, Jorge Masvidal. My point in all of this is he's beaten a bunch of, older fighters that he's supposed to beat, and he hasn't won a fight since 2023. It's unfortunate, but it's just the truth. Mike Malott's going to run right through Gilbert Burns is the answer to this question. An answer to who's going to win the main event. Malott's going to win. And again, they've set Malott up really well. Mike Malott's coming off 3 consecutive wins now. Right, he got fraud checked in Canada against Neil Magny on that Duplessis Strickland 1 undercard. It was supposed to be a huge coming out party for Mike Malott. He was a minus 400 favorite, and he was up 2 rounds to nothing, and he ran out of steam in the 3rd round, and Neil Magny TKO'd him on the ground with ground and pound to win the fight. Atrocious L for Malott. And I thought, honestly, at the time, that was the end of the Mike Malott experiment. But no, he's won 3 in a row, beat Trevin Giles, beat Charles Radke, who obviously, Radke won yesterday with his favorite word. Hilarious stuff, I guess. It was pretty funny. It's just his thing now. It's great, I guess. But Malott beat Radke, knocked him out. Great win. And then beat Kevin Holland. Did he beat Kevin Holland? I don't know. It's just another really close Kevin Holland fight. Sure, give him the win. They've been trying on Mike Malott. They give him Malott the win. Fine. Up-and-coming product, sure. He's going to knock out Gilbert Burns in the 1st round, guys. And that's not because I think he's better than Jack Della. He's better than Brady. He's better than Bilal. All guys who couldn't get Burns out of there until late in the fight, or in Bilal and Brady's case, couldn't get Burns out of the fight. Burns versus Morales, and Morales is really good. Don't get me wrong. By the way, where's the champion at 170 right now, guys? Does he fight anymore? Does that guy fight? I don't know. There's Ian Gary, Morales. All these guys need title shots, but fine. Whatever. I think he's supposed to fight in August, probably against Ian Gary, which I'm okay with. But Morales puts away Burns in the 1st round, And at some point, you gotta think it's the beginning of the end because, man, Burns looks so bad in that fight. And yeah, Morales is really good. Morales knocks out Sean Brady right after. Awesome. Burns doesn't stand a chance in that fight, though, man. First shot that he takes, you can tell, oh, he's wobbling. And Morales, yes, the guy just sits really hard, but Burns just did not stand a chance, and Burns has not looked impressive in a fight that he's had in a very long time. Guys, Gilbert Burns, I mean, how many rounds has he won since he beat Masvidal? How many total rounds has he won since he beat Jorge Masvidal? 1? 2, maybe? In 20 total rounds? He's won 1 or 2? I like Malott, and I'm not really concerned about Malott's gas tank anymore. I think he definitely learned his lesson in the Magny fight. I think he did honestly let his emotions get the best out of him because he was in his home country. Since then, they've given Malott more fights in Canada, right? Beat Trevin Giles in Edmonton. Yes, beat Charles Radke in Montreal. He now gets to fight in Manitoba. He is a fighter who is from Ontario, Canada. Both trading, I don't know if he's primary alpha male right now, but he's been training obviously in Canada as well, but his American camp is, I think that's his main camp with Uriah Faber over in Sacramento, California, obviously with Team Alpha Male. I think Mike Malott wins the fight. I think he does. Again, it's a pretty straightforward UFC wants the guy to win, and I just don't think Burns has much in the tank anymore. I think his chin's gone, and oh, by the way, yes, Gilbert Burns is 39 years of age. He will be 40 over the summer. Mike Malott wins the fight. He'll get it done by first round knockout. Should he be minus 600? No. He shouldn't be this big of a favorite. I would not bet him, obviously, anywhere near minus 600. But regardless, he will win the bout. Should he be this big of a favorite? No, but he will win. I'm going to go Mike Malott first round knockout. And I think they probably give him like a Leon Edwards next. They're going to try to, again, they're going to keep trying with this Malott thing. They'll give him Edwards. They'll go back to Canada at the end of the year. They'll do Edwards versus Malott. And if Malott wins, then he's a fight away. Then he has to win one more fight, and then he's getting a title shot. That's what they want. Again, they want a big Canadian star. He's their next GSP. Mike Malott beats Gilbert Burns by first round knockout. Folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC Winnipeg full card predictions. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for our PFL Belfast predictions, and on Thursday as well for our best bets for this UFC Winnipeg card as well. We'll be back next week, obviously, for my guy, Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master's back. He's taking on Youssef Zalal in the main event from the UFC Apex, so make sure to join us next week for that card as well. But again, more content coming to you on Greedo Plays MMA this week. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.